everyone, my name is Tanya and today's project is Loom knitting cat butt coasters. These are the supplies that you're going to need. I like to use a stitch counter, but that's optional. So we're going to start with a little bit longer tail and make a slip knot and place it onto our anchor peg. Place it behind so you begin your cast on stitch. We're going to E-wrap cast on all 24 pegs. So to do that, we're going to wrap once, wrap twice, take your hook, and stitch over. And then I like to pull it, not too tight, but tight enough. You want your cast on to be kind of secure because later we're going to loop it over. Again, wrap once, wrap twice, and knit over. We're going to do that for all 24 pegs. And that will be our cast on stitch so that we can begin. Okay, I'm going to meet you back around once we cast on all 24 pegs. Okay, we're almost at the end of our E-wrap cast on. We have now successfully casted on all 24 pegs. So we're going to begin with row 1. Row 1 is going to be a purl stitch. So if you're new to the purl stitch, you're going to place your working yarn down below, scoop up, make a new loop, lift it, and tighten. I'll show this a few times. Put your working yarn below, scoop, pull up, make a new loop, and place it on the peg and tighten. This is going to be row 1, and we're going to do this on all 24 pegs. Okay, one more peg and we will have completed row 1. Tighten. And then we need to take our slip knot off of the anchor peg. If we leave that on, it's not going to work out so well. We're going to move on to row 2. And row 2 is going to be a U-wrap knit. We're just going to take that working yarn, wrap it in a U shape around the peg on top of the loop, and knit over. Very simple. And I will periodically tighten throughout. We're going to do this wrap for all of row 2. All right, now we've completed row 2. Row 3, we're going to go back to that purl knit where we take the yarn under, scoop through, create a new loop, and place it onto the peg. So row 3 is going to be a purl. You can stop this at any time. Now we're back, almost done with row 3. And again, throughout the video, you can pause it as much as you'd like. Now we're going to do something a little different after this row 3. This is what's going to create that rim on this coaster. So we're going to take our cast on loop, the very bottom loop where we cast it on, and we're going to move it over peg 1. Takes a minute. First loop's a little hard, and knit over. Now when you do that, all of the bottom loops are going to flip up to the top. So now that loop's going to be the first loop. We're going to go ahead and knit over. And so for all 24 pegs, you're going to take that loop, put it on top of the peg, and knit over. Now some of these loops may give you some trouble because it does start to tighten up as you go around. Now we're at row 4. Row 4 through row 20 is the U-wrap knit. So it's again the knit that we did in the beginning where we take the yarn, wrap it around in a U, and knit over. So we're going to do this starting in row 4 and ending with row 20. I will meet you back at row 20. Okay, here we are, row 20. We're just finishing up. We're almost at the anchor peg where we started. Now this is where we're going to switch over to our pink yarn. Okay, so what I do to do my switch over is I take my next yarn color and I make a slip knot. This seems to work best for me. On peg 1, on row 21, we're going to add the pink slip knot. I'm going to tie it, make it snug, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut the orange working yarn. And I'm going to tie it to the tail of the slip knot. Do not tie it to the working yarn. Tie it to the tail, because we're going to do a drawstring cast off, and that would not allow things to close properly. And this is very simple. You're just going to hook over and a complete row 21 with just the same basic U-wrap. Now the pink is very simple. It is only one row. You are almost done with the body of your cat. All right, we're completing up row 21. So you're going to go ahead and take your yarn and measure approximately 1.5 times around your loom. And go ahead and cut that working yarn. And we're going to do the drawstring bind off. So to do this, you scoop under, pull the yarn through. Scoop under and pull the yarn through. Very simple. You're going to do this on all 24 pegs. And just remember, if you are enjoying this video, please give me a thumbs up. And also subscribe. We have many more videos coming on different types of art mediums. So go ahead and scoop the yarn through and pull. And I'll meet you back around when you finish this. Okay, only a couple more pegs to go, and you will have completed the drawstring cast off. So once you get back around to peg 1 again, we're going to go ahead and we're going to lift your loops off of each peg. Okay, we're almost at the end. We're going to go ahead and lift our project off of the loom. Now we're going to drawstring it together, and this is when it all comes together. So just gently tug on your yarn, not too hard because I've had yarns break when I've tugged too hard. And while you're trying to close up your circle, it might roll where you can see the underside, so I just like to work with it and start rolling the front side up. All right, so when you get it, you're still gonna have a hole. However, we're gonna close that up by using our yarn needle. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna thread our pink yarn through our yarn needle so we can close up that hole. Now this is like a really easy way for that hole to close up nice and snug. What I like to do is to go ahead and weave it through each stitch. Now, sometimes I grab one or two. I've never found that, that there's a harm if I took two that time. And as you thread it through or weave it through, that hole's going to naturally close up and help your circle to form. So I'm going to do that until I get all the way around to the beginning. That time I went through 3. And as you see, it starts becoming more enclosed. Then I go ahead and I put my needle through the center after I complete my final. I'm going to just stick it through and make a knot. To make a knot, I just like to weave it through the back side of that pink yarn so you can't see it on the front, and just slip it through the loop, and then I just cut it. Simple knot. If you have a better technique, feel free to use that. That works for me. And I stretch my stitches. Helps the circle to form. And you see that spot? I'm not sure what happened off camera, but somehow I obviously made a mistake. It's still not going to hinder the finished project. You could take some of the pink yarn, put it through. It actually looks fine in the end. So that tail that we started off with in our slip knot, what I like to do just to make that nice little rim for the coaster a little bit more secure, I'll go ahead and I will put it through my yarn needle, and I'm going to stitch around. I just stretch it out, go through a loop on the rim, and then I go through a stitch. I'll do this all the way around. No worries if you did not make that tail at the beginning slip knot long enough. However you do it around, if you only get a quarter way through or halfway through, it doesn't affect the project at all. I just really like it because it gives it a little bit more security and helps that circle form. So as I said, regardless of if your tail's long enough to go all the way around or not, it's fine. And at the end, I just weave it through some of the stitches around the edge. And then to cut it, it's super simple. I tug up on my yarn and cut it as close as I can, stretch, and that yarn's going to pop back into that, to the project. Take my needle, just tucked it in. It'll be fine. It's secure at that point. I give it another stretch, but honestly, when I lay it down on my table and come back later, it just naturally forms a perfect circle. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut the threads where I transitioned over to my pink on the back. Now again, if you have a better technique for transitioning, definitely use it. This is just what I tend to use because it works really simple for me. And for some reason I keep playing with it. I know it's just gonna go down to the perfect circle by the time I complete my feet and my tail. So now we're going to do our tail. So we're just going to cast on 9 pegs. Now, I'm a left-handed person, so I tend to go counterclockwise with everything, but it really doesn't matter on the body or any of these projects which direction you choose to go. Now, I try to make a tail approximately about 7 inches long on my slip knot because we're going to use this to weave it through the tail and sew it onto the body. And again, this is just approximate. So go ahead, tuck that tail behind. And for this, we're going to do the same E-wrap cast on that we did for the body. We're going to cast on to 9 pegs. Now, I didn't use any stitch markers for my 9 pegs, but definitely it would be handy if it's something that you wanted to do. So again, just an E-wrap, E-wrap, knit over. I want to thank you so much for watching the video, and if you did enjoy it, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up when you complete your project, and definitely subscribe. I have a lot of nice videos coming along with different mediums, always including loom knitting, but many different projects as well. I'm also going to put the link below too, to my Etsy store where you can find the written pattern of this project. So I'm done with my cast on with all 9. So again, super easy. Row 1, we're going to U-wrap knit. So just go around each one with your yarn in a U, knit over. I will tighten between each stitch usually. Again, not too tight, but you want your stitches to be somewhat closer together. And then when we get to the end of row 1, we're going to go ahead and take our slip knot off the anchor peg. Definitely always want to do this so it doesn't hinder the project. And I just pull the knot out and pull the tail down. Now row 2, back to our purl stitch. Very simple. We're going to put the working yarn under, scoop, make a new loop, place the new loop on. Do that for all 9 pegs. This is a super short part of the project. The tail and the feet take no time at all. Yeah, my hands weren't working so well there. All right, so now we're on row 3. We're going to U-wrap knit all the way back. These are the only 2 wraps that we're going to be using for this project. Just basic U-wrap knit and purls. And this is only a 5-row project. Now when we get to the end of row 3, we're going to decrease 1. This is what's going to make that little curve at the tail. So we're at the end of row 3. So to decrease 1, we're going to U-wrap over, we're going to call that peg 1. We're going to U-wrap peg 2. We're going to take the loop off of peg 2, place it on peg 1, tighten, and knit over. I'm going to U-wrap and knit both loops over. Take it off peg 1, place the loop on peg 2 and tighten. And now we're in row 4. So I'm going to bring that working yarn right back onto what is now peg 1 and purl the rest of row 4. Now we only have one more row after this, and our tail's going to be done. And I'm sure you know, row 5 is going to be our U-wrap knit. So we're finishing up row 4, and this is going to be the final row of our tail. So go ahead and U-wrap knit. And knit off to the end. And then we're going to do a basic bind off, and our tail's going to be almost done. All right, row 5 is done. So to do the basic bind off, we're going to U-wrap, peg 1, U-wrap, peg 2. Take the loop off of peg 2. Place it on peg 1. All right, now for this, I'm going to pull down both loops, U-wrap, and pull both loops over. Take the loop off of peg 1 and place it on peg 2, and now that is your new peg 1. I'm sure you've seen this technique many times. U-wrap peg 1, pull to tighten. U-wrap peg 2, take the loop from peg 2, place it on top the loop of peg 1. I then pull down both loops, U-wrap, pull over. And now we take the loop and place it from peg 1 to peg 2, tighten, and that is our peg 1. And I'm going to repeat this all the way down to the end. And it's really cute how that tail starts to form. Okay, we're almost at the end. We have 3 pegs left. I know different on peg 1 and 2. Wrap around peg 1, wrap around peg 2, lift off. And now we're going to U-wrap and pull both over. Now for this, I'm going to go ahead, tighten, pull down, and U-wrap one more time, pull it over. And then I'm going to go ahead and measure out a little bit long of a tail. Now, I will tell you, I'm really good at giving extra yarn because I just want to have enough to sew on. We're going to go ahead and lift that loop off. And then I make a knot with the ending part and pull it through. Because down there at the bottom, we're going to use that yarn to sew it onto the body. So now we're going to take our beginning slip knot where the yarn was at the top. And I'm going to go ahead. Now this is where you can use your crochet hook. I'm not very savvy with the crochet hook, so I tend to use the needle for a lot. You could also weave this yarn completely down the side of the tail using your crochet hook. For me, it just goes quicker with this needle. And we're going to take our cast on loops and we're going to go ahead and we're going to weave that yarn through. It's just going to give it a nice finished edge. And also once you get down to the bottom, you can give it a tug and it's going to pull the top of the tail so you can make that cattail curl as much as you would like because of this. And I just weave it in and out down the edge. It seems to tighten up those stitches instead of any other method. This works best for me. I mean, I am somewhat of a beginner, so I don't have all the tips and tricks. And being a lefty, sometimes that really is hard for me to watch some videos. I have to figure a lot of stuff out on my own and just what works. So when you get down to the bottom, we're going to go ahead and thread it through the bottom and pull it through. So now you have 2 pieces of yarn that you can sew your tail on. Take it out. As I said, I like to stretch my stitches. You can pull it and make it curl as much as you'd like. All right, now we're going to work on the feet. The feet are super simple. We're going to secure our slip knot. We're going to make about a 5-inch tail. Put it on your anchor peg. We're only going to use 3 pegs to cast on. And again, either direction. Now this is different. I make an E-wrap and then come back to the end of the 3rd peg and U-wrap. So this is a different cast on than the other parts of the project. So I E-wrap on 3 pegs and come back and U-wrap. And that's going to be your cast on. This just tends to work for the little foot. So rows 1, 3, and 5, you're going to U-wrap knit. We're still using the same. We're going to U-wrap, row 1, rows 2 and 4. Well, first let's take off the anchor peg. And then rows 2 and 4, we're going to purl. Those same 2 stitches that we've done throughout the project. And these are not what I call the most perfect feet. However, they turn out really cute. And you could always take some embroidery thread and add to the tail, the feet, and everything. So, and again, super short rows. Now you're going to do this twice, of course, because there's 2 feet. So we're just going to purl. There's only 5 rows for a foot, so this goes really quick. So now we're in row 3. We're just going to U-wrap knit. Row 4 purl. And I'm wrong, there's 7 rows on this, but 5 rows before we do the decrease. Okay, so we're going to do the decrease right here at row 5, okay? So we U-wrap knit row 1, peg 1, peg 2. Same thing, take the loop off, move it to peg 2, now it's peg 1. And now we're going to just work our next rows 5, 6, and 7 on 2 pegs. So we U-wrap. Row 6, we're going to purl. And if that kind of went quick for you, I do apologize. Definitely go back and rewatch this little segment. But we decrease before we complete row 5. And now we're just going to end up row 7. Row 7 is actually our bind off. And we're going to do the final peg the same way. We're just going to wrap. I'm having a little issues. Okay, move your little foot behind. Because it's so tiny, it kind of gets in the way. We're going to wrap, we're going to pull it out. And again, we're going to cut a little extra tail because we're going to sew this on too, kind of like we did before, and loop it through and make your knot. And that's going to be actually the top of the foot that you attach to the body. So we're going to do the same technique we did with the tail. And we're going to go ahead and take that beginning slip knot. And again, this is where you can use a crochet hook if it's easier for you. I always use the needle. And you're going to just go ahead and thread your yarn. And do the same weaving up the side. And just weave it up the side to meet up with that ending yarn because this is going to help secure it to the body. And again, you can make your little tug and shape your foot. It doesn't look like a perfect foot, but once you put it on the body, it tends to work out pretty good. As I said, you can always take some embroidery floss and do some little toes or something on it. So you're just going to repeat this one more time. And see, there you go, your perfect circle. You decide where you want to place your tail, how you want the curve, front or back of that tail, doesn't matter, they look the same. So what I tend to do is go ahead and take one of my pins and I pin that tail on so it doesn't move around too much for me. I just use a straight pin. You use whatever is convenient for you. And then I'll go ahead. And I like things super secure. I have grandkids. They grab these, they tug on them. So I sew them on like really crazy. And we're going to go from back to front. So I like to go through the base of the tail and through the stitches on the edging and back through. I'm going to do that until I take the yarn on the one side and bring it all the way around to the other side. It's going to give me a nice secure stitch. And don't worry about how perfect. As long as you go in through that edging, it's going to pull through. You're not going to see how perfectly you're sewing. You can definitely hide any imperfections. I remove my pin at that point, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to weave it through back to the other side because I want to meet up with my other yarn after I weave that through. Just going to make security. So that other side, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to thread it through our needle and sew through there back and forth until we meet up on the other side where we pulled that first yarn through. And see, I went through wrong there. We don't want to do that. We want to go through that edging. You can hide all your stitches right through that edging. And nobody will ever see how perfect or not perfect it is. And definitely your work could be a lot neater than mine. At this point, I've made several of these just to test it out. And I was getting a little lazy. And we're just going to pull that through. And then I'm just going to knot these two off. So something I like to do, and this is again where you can use a crochet hook. My hands don't do that so well. I like to weave this thread through our project some instead of just cutting it off right there. I feel it gives it a little stability if the knot was to loosen up or something like that. You can knot it off there if you'd like. It just truly depends on what you'd like to do. So again, through the back of the yarn, I will just work it through. My yarn's starting to fray a little bit. I just used acrylic yarn for this. You definitely could use some 100% cotton, whatever you'd like. I just happen to have some number 4 Super Saver acrylic yarn on hand to do these. And they actually do hand wash up pretty okay. So again, I'm just going back and forth. And the same technique I always use. I tug on it to pull it up. I cut it close. And stretch it out. It allows that to just disappear in the work. And I do that with both sides. As I said before, I just find it gives a little bit more stability. Okay, we're finishing that up the same way. Tug it, cut, stretch it back out. All right, now you're ready to figure out where you would like to place your feet. Now again, your tail, you can center it like I did. You can put it to the side. So then I take foot 1 and I pin it on. These will get away from you. I highly suggest pinning them on to get your right placement. I made a couple where the feet kind of got away from me and it didn't look too good. And we're going to go ahead and sew the feet on the exact same way that you did the tail. Now again, as I mentioned, you can weave it through with your crochet hook or your needle. We're going to weave it through and cut it just like the tail. You're going to find your placement for your second foot and do absolutely the same. And your project is going to be completed. And here's your completed project. I'd love for you to share with me pictures of your completed project. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy this, and go ahead and subscribe. And please leave a comment on any other projects that you would like to see. I've had a great time, and I will meet you back here with another project.